clouds, we're talking about understanding the terminology and the services that are deployed in private cloud infrastructures as well as public cloud infrastructures. And we're going to determine that in a few minutes. We actually have three different types of clouds: public, private, and hybrid. Hybrid is really a combination of public and private cloud offerings. So let's take a look at the differences between these various clouds. But before we do that, let's talk about on-premises. So when we talk about an on-premises infrastructure, we're talking about an infrastructure that's deployed within your company. So you manage the servers, you manage the hardware, the services, the firewalls. Pretty much everything in your organization is being managed by internal administrators, and you are responsible for all of those services as they function and provide functionalities for the users in your user population. Your users then consume those services, and as they consume them, you need to update and upgrade and manage the hardware that the services live on. On-premises infrastructures have been around for many, many years, and many administrators today are very familiar with managing enterprise services on premises. As we talk about moving to the cloud, we look at how these type of offerings get transferred into a cloud-like functionalities or experience. For example, we have the private cloud. And the private cloud is really an on-premises cloud experience, whereas a user, and that user could be an administrator, has a portal-based environment from which they can manage the infrastructure, provision servers, deploy applications, manage websites. All of those things can be configured and managed from a portal-based environment, almost hiding the infrastructure that is in the background and exposing only those portals for managing to administrators. A private cloud infrastructure depends on software that manages that private cloud and that exposes all the functionalities in the portal. A good example of that private cloud software is System Center 2012 by Microsoft, which provides a private cloud infrastructure. It is typically stored in a private data center, so you are still responsible for the hardware. You're still responsible for the software and all the network services. The level of responsibility that an internal organization has for a private cloud is really no different than an on-premises infrastructure. The primary difference is the experience of managing the infrastructure. And then we talk about a public cloud. Now, you know about the Google public cloud, Amazon Web Services, and of course, Microsoft Azure. You've heard of Microsoft Azure, and you understand that Microsoft Azure provides this public cloud functionality, and as a vendor is responsible for most tasks that are performed within their Azure infrastructure. The public cloud uses a leasing-based model, which basically is a pay-as-you-go or pay-as-you-use type of infrastructure. So as you consume resources, whether those be applications or workloads, services, or infrastructure as a whole, you pay based on your usage. That usage may be the amount of data that is stored in the cloud infrastructure, as well as the services offered by virtual machines, for example. A great advantage of a public cloud infrastructure is that you have this entire infrastructure that's already there. And if you need to deploy a new application or you need to deploy a new server, you can do that very quickly and at a very low cost because you don't need to purchase new hardware to support that additional infrastructure. Sometimes simply purchasing hardware for an organization can take weeks or months, especially in large organizations. If you have a public cloud infrastructure, it can be just as quickly as a couple of minutes to provision a virtual machine that will then store or host all the services that you want to make available to your users. When we're looking at a major operational difference of a public cloud is that we're really reducing the capital expenditures of a company. You no longer need to spend as much money on your servers and your networking hardware. You can reduce those. However, you will have a major increase in operational expenses, the expenses that are recurrent on a monthly basis to support the usage of your public cloud. Whether you decide to go with an Azure public cloud or an Amazon Web Services to host your virtual machines, the model is really quite similar. It's a monthly leasing based on usage. In the next video, we'll talk about the various subscriptions and the cost models that are associated with the Azure Microsoft solution. Now, there's also the hybrid cloud. Now, the hybrid cloud is a true mix of public and private solution, whereas you can have your own internal private data center, and then you may choose to store some workloads, some services, some applications over into the public cloud. You may store those in the public cloud because that may be the right environment for them. It may be less costly to deploy that data or store that data into the cloud rather than to purchase new storage hardware to move that data over. So you truly get to choose the best environment for either your data, your services, or your application based on your security needs or your cost needs or other organization needs that you may be running into within your company. Now, there are many customers or many organizations that are reluctant on moving to the cloud for various reasons. Some of those are political reasons where they want to limit the replication of the data to other countries. Now, there's actually solutions in Azure where we can segregate the data and specify where it gets replicated and where it doesn't. But that perception still exists where people may not want to do a full migration to a public offering. And in order to limit that, but still get the benefits of a public cloud, the hybrid cloud or the hybrid solution gives you the ability to only selectively put resources into the cloud that for which they are appropriate. Now, keep in mind that if you have a hybrid cloud solution, it's definitely going to be more complex to manage because you'll have to manage both environments as well as the coexistence or the communication between both environments.